Alright. I feel like it's a villain's day. Is it because it's Halloween? Halloween doesn't necessarily mean it's villains. So something like this, sometimes it's kind of fun to draw the face independent of the mask or the helmet, the helm. All right, at least do that structure, and then you put the helmet over it, the face. Yeah, basically putting a hand here. So he's kind of doing this. I don't like my ranges of motion is limited. My favorite part of drawing Magneto was trying to figure out what this thing on his forehead, what it did, what it represented. And Kirby would kind of draw it differently each time he drew it. That lower part is a little wide. Really should be right there. I'll fix that with whiteout. Because I forgot to do a 25 level last time. So I'm going to cruise through this a little bit. And then there'll be sessions. I'm not just going to draw headshots all the time, too. I mean, that gets boring and kind of repetitious as well. But at some point, I'll do more. There'll be fewer of them, maybe just like one full figure shot or two full figure shots. So you can see how that kind of plays out. I don't know what that meant. I'm tired, sick, and my back is, when I say back, my shoulder is just messed up. I feel like this helmet is just squishing his brain. I feel like it should be this big. I'm looking at it backwards through the light. That's a good way of almost like looking at it as if someone else drew it, and it's confirming it, my suspicions. Okay, let me. So I'm going to have it, the Magneto the sort of the magnetic power kind of emanating out of his hand. And so I'm just basically inking the top part of the hand, that so the light source looks like it's coming from inside his palm. Could do the rest of the helmet. I know I have multiple lines. In fact, I haven't even inked the top part of the helmet, which is fine because I'm going to put sort of black effects, smudge effects with Kleenex up there, and then use whiteout to establish the final sort of boundary or the outline of his helmet. Now I'm just doing sort of the metal effects. Some dry brush effects there. That helmet's going to cast a very fierce and deep shadow on his neck. All right, just like that. Okay. And these elements here reflect as well. Have reflections. I covered reflections last week actually. What they mean, how to do them, where to put them. Now I'm wondering. I like that. So that's like the rendering of the other underside of his pec there. This is tricky kind of inking while other parts are still wet, so I'm actually using my pinky to elevate, kind of like one of those crutches that they use in pool to kind of raise the cue stick above the floor, so I don't smear it. Okay, now I'm going to establish the back of the helmet. Right. Using dry brush effects to create this illusion of metal reflections. if you devote yourself to something, you get pretty good at it, meaning you put a lot of hours in, and it does look easy, but it's not, because there's all this sort of experience that goes behind sort of every decision. And but look, I feel the same way when I watch people, some of these gamers on Twitch, they make it look so easy, and then when then you try to do it, it's so difficult, and you actually feel like they're cheating somehow, but they're not. They're obviously just very skilled because they put in countless hours, and they probably have some innate ability as well. But you watch people play musical instruments, it looks pretty effortless. You know, athletes that make these amazing, flying catches. There are a couple in last night's Astros Yankees game where this Astro, just like center fielder, leapt up and just caught this ball. And if you've ever played any baseball, you just realize how hard it is to be able to do that and kind of keep focused and while you're running and make the catch and not hurt yourself. So yeah, if you grab a brush and some ink and start drawing, yeah, it's going to be challenging at first, but don't look. I've been doing this for a long, long time, so don't let it get you down. Just realize that if you keep working at it, you should see improvement in ability, technical ability, and control every 3 months if you're doing it dedicated. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that they start and they get discouraged and they stop. And then if you stop, you got to essentially kind of start all over in terms of rebuilding that experience and hand-eye coordination and muscle memory. Story getting out there. Okay. Okay. All right. Trying to create some. It's kind of a modern day version of Kirby Crackle. It's just black shapes to kind of create atmosphere and energy, a sense of some sort of either atmospheric effect or energy kind of coming off of him. Actually reminds me a little of like iron fillings or iron. Have you ever seen those experiments with iron bits of iron, and then they put a magnet on it, and they basically clump and form patterns like that? So, kind of digging it. I've worn a mask at Comic-Con to walk around just for fun. And I'll tell you that more people look at you if you wear a mask. It was like a Court of Owls mask, but I didn't have any other parts of the Court of Owls. I was just, meaning if you just put on a Spider-Man mask, but you don't have the rest of the costume, I think people do look at you because they do think like, oh, someone's just dressing up to hide their appearance. So I think people, to fully go unnoticed, you have to commit and actually cosplay for real. If you do it half-heartedly, I think people realize, oh, that guy's trying to hide his appearance by wearing just a Spider-Man mask. Who is it? And even when I was wearing the mask, someone did recognize me. But they might have seen me before, like wearing that T-shirt or whatever I was wearing. So much for those things being effective. So I'm now adding the shadow of the mask over his face, or the helmet over his eyes. I'm going to blacken in the whites of his eyes here. Kind of create a more sinister look because his eyeballs have. So we sort of just see the shadow, or the glint of light coming off his eyeball right here. So right off the bat, you can tell there's a sort of a darkening of the mood of the piece. And some stubble. And actually, it might have been kind of cool to go to black underneath there. If I was doing getting a little Bill Sienkiewicz here. All right. Just kind of drawing, basically layering in shadows and gray values through cross-hatching or just parallel lines real quick. And I am going to go darker here underneath here, but I'm going to build it up so I kind of know where I want to stop. That makes sense, right? All the while going through and reinforcing kind of shadows and creating structure in the very sort of light underdrawing. I like things not quite like that nostril was a little high. This nostril was a little high. This lip structure was a little weird. So I'm basically readjusting it through rendering, kind of redrawing over it in ink. It makes for kind of a messier drawing, but I like the energy you get out of doing kind of working this way. Very different than kind of my finished pencils and inks, which tend to be a little more refined. But that's what I love about sketching, and kind of the piece kind of evolves in front of you. And this is something, if I were drawing this professionally for a gig or whatever, I'd be erasing, redrawing, and that's how you make the changes here. I'm editing live, kind of, so to speak, using ink. Right. It was a big influence early on in my career when I was working on X-Men. You know, Shiro Azumune, Appleseed, and Akira by Otomo. All right, now there's a lot of detail going on there. So I kind of, either you go with leaving it there nowhere else, or you need to extend it out and bring everything else in, meaning there's detail here, so the eye goes to the detail and everything else kind of loose. And I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Let's see. Just darkening some of these values here. I'm going to erase some of these lines. I like to leave some of it just to kind of indicate that it is a sketch, but sometimes the lines get in the way of the structure. Right, I'm not drawing the rest of that helmet. The eye kind of fills it in. Okay. All right. A couple lines here. Just adding costume detail at this point. Alright, I just realized this part of the helmet is not long enough. Raise this helmet a little bit in the back here. Adjustment of the eyes. Okay. A lot of it. Alright. Alright, now I just draw back in this helmet a little bit here. Probably whited out too much of it. But I do like the idea of suggesting the outline without actually drawing the outline. Like so. I know what it is, this thing. Not symmetrical. Okay, now it is. Alright, purposely kind of smudge the edges here. Right, to create that kind of coffee cup effect.
just creating patterns on patterns. Whatever you think at this point will look good. Concentric magnetic lines. And maybe the last one right here. I feel like there should be one in the foreground here. Maybe two. Yeah, feeling it. I think I'm done.